or two or three that may have questions for you.
Okay, that sounds great.
All right, go ahead. Thanks.
Okay, beautiful. Thank you, Madam Chair. So I appreciate the opportunity to speak up for my community. My name is Wendy Wong. I am the chair of board of Fudan University Alumni Toronto Association. Our association members came here to pursue the Canadian dreams, and our association provides a platform to help them live a better life in Canada. One of the most active groups in our association is the Mothers Group. This is a group of highly educated women who strongly believe in knowledge and education. On a regular day, we would chat about a good summer camp or a new recipe, but ever since COVID breakout in Toronto, our topics heavily curved towards school closure and the rising racism against Chinese community. Some of you may know, racism attacks against Asian community have been up 700 times in Toronto since last year. Unfortunately, our schools and kids are not immune from it. I submitted this picture prior to the meeting, so hopefully you all get it, which was drawn by one of our kids. This was drawn in 2020 by a grade 3 boy. He goes to the Delegates Public School in North York. So 2 girls in his class said he was spreading COVID, followed by the 2 girls' action. 2 boys stopped playing with him, and then he was isolated by the whole class. This boy wrote, "Today, I'm really mad because so-and-so and so-and-so was bullying me. They were saying I'm sick and they're running away from me, and they're telling other people not to play with me too." And this is just one example among many, many other incidents or silent isolations that happened. So coming back to that boy, due to this incident, his family made a decision to remove him from Delegates Public School and transfer him to a Catholic school. So today, if you were parents of Asian community, when you tuck your kids in at night, how would you tell them about the racism happened to them in the school? As I mentioned, the members of our association came to pursue our Canadian dreams. Now, if you will Google the phrase Canadian dream and open the first webpage that pops up, the first element of Canadian dream is being accepted and loved by this beautiful country and its people. The second element is being proud of who you are, as well as being able to help others do the same. However, when your kids were mocked, teased, avoided, isolated, or even told, go back to where you came from, do you still have a Canadian dream? So one common trait of hate is that it is contagious. Our alumni association is currently conducting a machine learning project based on Twitter public data. Our early stage data analysis show that one hate comment from an average user will attract in average 30 retweets. It spreads much faster than positive comments. So if one hate behavior can reproduce into 30 hate behavior, it is 10 times more contagious than COVID. Just like in my example, start with 2 girls, and then the 2 boys, and then the whole class is taken within 1 day. So having said that, we have faith in our country and in you who sit on this committee knowing what is the right things to do. Hate and racism should have no place in school. A pandemic itself is hard enough. So TDSB trustees and chair, let's stop the hate by education. Let's equip our teachers with the proper material and knowledge to deal with this subject. And let's teach our kids true Canadian values. Let us support each other in this hard time, support the Asian community in need. Let us do something we'll still be proud of in 10 years when we look back.
Wendy, you have
never have a student.
You have about half a minute to go.
Okay. Never have a student leave TDSB because of racism again. Thank you. I'm done. I'm done.
Thank you very much, Wendy. That was quite a powerful story, and Steve. So you can go ahead.
Okay. Thank you, Madam Chair. and thank you for the opportunity to speak. Good afternoon, trustees. My name is Andy Shi, and I'm the Executive Director of CPAC. We are a professional association with over 30,000 members, and we are very deeply concerned about the shadow pandemic of anti-Asian racism. For many months last year, I was involved in campaigns to support Canadian healthcare workers and combat COVID-19. We donated money and donated PPE, cooked food, made cotton masks, shipped for groceries, and answered calls for help with mental health issues. I was touched again and again by the loving kindness and generosity of my fellow Chinese Canadians. And I was also very proud of the responsible, exemplary personal behaviors that our community has demonstrated in following public health guidelines. So it's by no accident that the Chinese community has the lowest infection rate, and that only 2% of Canada's imported cases came from China. But sadly, our contributions have not been recognized and appreciated by the wider community. On the contrary, Chinese Canadians have been scapegoated for the failure of our governments and society as a whole in controlling the pandemic. Our seniors, children, and really people of all ages, including myself, have been assaulted, spat on, yelled at, harassed, and treated with all kinds of microaggression and hostility. Many of us have to change our routine just to be safe. Yet that still cannot avoid it. My friend's 12-year-old daughter was yelled at by an adult in her own neighborhood. This little girl was so traumatized that she dared not step out of the door for months. So I asked, how could people be so barbaric? And the answer I find really is anti-Asian racism is an infectious disease that damages right thinking. It's also a learned behavior. Kids are not born racist. They are taught to be so. And this racism disease has plagued Canada for generations. If we do not break the chain of transmission, it will continue to plague our society. Anti-Asian racism does not just hurt Asian Canadians. We all pay a price for it, one way or another, just like the impact of COVID-19 on all of us. Breaking the chain of transmission must start at the formative years of childhood. In the school is the primary training ground for the learning of correct behaviors and values and unlearning of bad influences. It is education that determines what kinds of human products we have in tomorrow's society. Do we want sensible, respectful, and equitable-minded citizens of inclusive society, or insensitive, bigoted, and disease-impaired minds of a discriminatory class society? Ladies and gentlemen, you are the trustees of the Toronto District School Board. In you, we have entrusted the education of future generations. And I urge you to please demonstrate your leadership by ensuring that every child receives the right kind of education that codifies the inherent dignity of every human being, regardless of their race, color, and ethnic origin.
Just wanted to let you know you have
strong.
I just wanted to let you know you have under a minute to go.
Okay. Education that instills a strong sense of racial equity, social justice, mutual respect, diversity, and inclusion. Implementing the educational resource of addressing anti-Asian racism is a necessary action to do that. And I urge you to require staff to seriously plan and implement it. To fundamentally undo the damage of a century-old racism, we must also change the exclusive Eurocentric curricula. For students to develop holistically, they need to learn the full history of Canada. They need to know Canada's history of racial discrimination and its devastating consequences. They need to know the contributions made by all groups of the Canadian mosaic in the history of Canada's nation building. We must remedy the exclusive curricula if we're serious about eradicating racism. And I hope you will all be leaders of that endeavor too. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Mr. Shi. Trustees will have a chance to ask questions of clarification if they wish.
Thank you, Madam Chair. And good afternoon, and thank you all for having me here today. My name is Emily. I'm representing Canadian Chinese Financial Association. CCFA is a 20-year-old NGO with 3,000 members. We are a group of university graduates and financial professionals who committed their passion into banking, insurance, accounting, consulting, and all other broader financial services in GTA. We are from Southeast Asian families. We are the children and the parents of Asian. From day to day, we provide financial services to all races and ethnic groups. We promote diversity and inclusion in service orientation in the workplace. At home, we share our value and equality, inclusion, and respect for individuals with our second generations. This creates a positive cycle in building up the harmony, society, prosperity. I'm a mother for 2 boys, grade 9 and grade 12. Children at this stage are no longer do mom says. They observe the world with their own eyes and react in their unique way. We do a lot of exchange of news and ideas in the lockdown period. A month ago, the topic was about anti-Asian races. My younger son was the first to say that once on his way home from school, someone called him chink. I was shocked and asked him how he dealt with it. He said he was scared at first, but his friends immediately came to accompany him and scolded that guy back. My elder son then told his brother the best approach was to ignore them and stay with Asian friends forever. Only hanging around with Asian or Chinese, I want to correct them, but I don't know where to begin with. I believe the different culture background bring the best practice. This is the beauty of immigrant countries. Then my son and I start to miss our days in Singapore, the country my younger boy was born, where my family lived for 4 years. It had been a very multicultural but harmless memory. For anyone who doesn't know Singapore, a remarkable findings of diverse country, whose population is 74% Chinese, 13% Malay, 9% Indian. It is also the most religiously diverse nation in the world. Its population made up of sizable portions of Buddhist, Christian, Muslims, and Hindus. Singapore sets a great example on multiculturalism and success integration of its ethnic and racial groups. Government policies have been also to treat every race, language, and religion as equal. Both the housing integration and school program offer the different people to live and grow up together in the same neighborhood, breaking up the ghettos. Ethnic and religion minority are well integrated socially and economically. At that time, my children were in kindergarten and learned English and Chinese as their mother language. In order to celebrate the tradition, the statutory holidays are formed by the main ethnic festival. The school curriculum contains the culture, picture, history, and relevant knowledge of each ethnic group. The children are encouraged to dress up in the traditional costume and share their traditional food to celebrate. I was even invited by the school to demonstrate how to make dumpling trials. Each child is well engaged and very proud of their own national and religion belief, but also respect and enjoy with others. They learn by playing together. They are no longer Chinese, Malay, Indian. They share the common name of Singaporean. For multicultural education.
You have 1 minute left.
Okay. For multicultural education to be effective, it must be introduced in the earlier years and reinforced throughout the school years. It is important for teachers of young children to be equipped with appropriate knowledge, skills, and positive attitude to promote it on an ongoing basis. Now we are delighted to see TDSB have made the first step through this motion. The implementation of anti-Asia resource guide and related resource in elementary and secondary teaching and learning, as well as how it will be monitored. Hope to see this motion kick off soon smoothly. The guide and related resource and the measurements are not just being politically correct, and hope to see its rally in a consistent way, further enhance our social system to enable everyone a better place to live. That's all from me. Thank you again, Madam Chair.
Thank you very much, Ms. Gu. Please go ahead.
Okay. Good afternoon, trustees. My name is Bill Yi. I represent the Confederation of Chinese Alumni Association, which is we call CCAA, which is a volunteer group of Canadian Chinese University Alumni Association. So at the present, our organization has a membership of 82 alumni association members, representing more than 20,000 individuals. As most of the large population of Chinese immigrants in Canada have university degrees, our CCA is also a large social network that effectively connects the mainland Chinese immigrants. So when the COVID-19 onset in February last year in Canada, there were a few cases reported in our organization that they were discriminated for wearing masks during the shopping or be maliciously joked with Chinese virus, even on the road or in the condominium public area, such as the elevators. Some members even was asked by strangers to go back to China. One member reported that when he walked on York Street in downtown Toronto last summer, someone even threw an egg to him for no reason. So recently, our organization collaborated with University of Toronto and also Memorial University to assess the anti-Asian discrimination in Canada via online cross-sectional survey. From more than 600 surveys we received from the Asian community in Canada, we found, first, more than 75% agree that COVID-19 pandemic has caused increased discrimination against Asian residents in Canada. Second, more than 51% have experienced language discrimination since the COVID-19 pandemic. Third, the most places where language discrimination occurred are public places, cyber platform, workplaces, and residential neighborhoods. Fourth, 78% agree that the severity of discrimination against Asian immigrants have significantly increased since the COVID-19 pandemic. And the last one, more than 19% think the most effective measure to prevent discrimination against Asian immigrants is through education, including the anti-discrimination curriculum in the schools. So this is the second effective measure after the legislation according to the survey. So diversity is one of our nation's greatest strengths. So Canada is the home place for our many immigrants. We like people in Canada to be treated equally and friendly as we are one big family. Our education system can make the difference through promoting the right values. So let us continue to be recognized for our inclusivity, acceptance, and compassion. We strongly urge our trustees here to approve the anti-Asian racism in the curriculum. During this Asia Heritage Month, let's also celebrate the contribution of Asian Canadians, including the Asian Canadian frontline workers who have been working tirelessly to keep our communities safe and healthy. Thank you and have a nice day. Merci beaucoup. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Yi, these Canadians. So thank you so much, Lynn, for joining us today, and please go ahead.
Okay, so that's Lynn Deutscher Kobayashi. I'm a third generation Japanese Canadian, and I am representing the National Association of Japanese Canadians as well as the Toronto chapter of the National Association of Japanese Canadians. So our organization was founded in 1947 to fight the injustices to our community from 1942 to 1949. So as you've often heard, anti-Asian racism is not new, and we know that. I applaud these first steps by the TDSB to implement an anti-Asian racism program, and I appreciate that the hardest steps are the first steps. I spent a dozen years as a parent council chair in schools where Asian students were a majority, but were not adequately represented by their parents on the parent council. At the time, Deuce and French immersion students had class sizes of about 22 students, while the English stream had class sizes that were 10 or more students. However, my main purpose is to stress the importance of educating the public on the history of anti-Asian racism in Canada, because that is an anti-racist action. From 1942, Japanese Canadians experienced family separation, incarceration of varying degrees, including POW camps here in Ontario. Families, women, and children were subject to forced labor, forced uprooting and dispossession, and the loss of all property. These measures resulted in Japanese Canadians becoming the most assimilated racialized community in Canada. I just want to read you a quote from a book called The Politics of Racism by Anne Sunahara. Throughout the spring and summer of 1942, special trains left Vancouver for the interior mountains of BC. To the casual observer, the trains seemed no different from any other passenger trains, except the trains left Vancouver fully loaded and returned empty. Only those close enough to see the black-haired figures at the windows would have known for certain that those special trains were carrying Japanese Canadians into exile. Where did they go? Toronto ended up with the greatest number of Japanese Canadians in Canada. In 1941, there were 234 Japanese Canadians in Ontario. By 1949, there were more Japanese Canadians in Ontario than in BC. Forced out of BC, Japanese Canadians were greeted with hostility across Canada. In 1942, the city of Toronto banned Japanese Canadians from the city, and I've included 2 press clippings to report on this. I was born and raised in Montreal because both sets of parents and grandparents were not able to settle here. I support further development of this TDSB resource, but I do have concerns about the historical content and references, noting there's little mention of the most extreme examples of anti-Asian racism in Canadian history and the city of Toronto. These violations of human rights led to the historic redress and apology by the Canadian government in 1988, the largest human rights settlement in Canada at that time. Our community is small, but one cannot discuss anti-Asian racism in Canada without giving prominence to the scattering of our community, which by current standards would now be called ethnic cleansing. To give you an example of the magnitude of this, at 2 p.m. today, the BC government announced a $2 million fund for survivors of these injustices. And that's just a small gesture towards a larger BC redress settlement we are currently negotiating. Japanese Canadians were the last Asian group to receive the right to vote in 1949. And that's a really critical fact that's missing from this this anti-Asian resource. And actually, all other Asians did not receive the right to vote until 1947. I highlight these omissions to make the point that more resources must be directed to this project. I note there were no Japanese Canadians involved in this resource, and there's a lack of diversity of the generations and migration cohorts.
Just to let you know, you have just less than a minute to go. Thank you.
Okay. Many Asians newer to Canada are not aware of Canada's long-standing colonial history and need to be educated as well. But anti-Asian racism must go beyond song, dance, costume, and food. Displays of diverse culture do not equate to inclusion or a narrowing of the power gap. The omission of the Toronto NHAC from this resource indicates a lack of understanding of the community groups who are addressing issues of racism and hate. We are the longest running human rights group in Canada. As well, the Canadian Race Relations Foundation is missing from this list, and this was established as part of the JC Redress Agreement. we donated $12 million to create this organization. So I am some support of this resource, but I hope that there will be more funding to, make sure that there's community outreach and that there is a better coverage of fundamental Asian histories in Toronto and Canada.
Thank you very much,